million acres seeded in 2023. The Canadian Grain Commission reports producer deliveries of canola for the week ending March 3rd slipped from the previous week at about 349,000 tons. Exports of 78,100 tons are relatively steady from a week ago, and domestic usage nudges up to 174,000 tons. The Canadian dollar is slightly higher on Friday morning, with the loonie at 74.28 US cents compared to Thursday's close of 74.22. The United States Department of Agriculture is set to publish its March supply and demand estimates today at 11 a.m. Central. Ending stocks for U.S. soybeans, corn, and wheat are expected to move very little. For South America, the trade believes the USDA will hold its estimate for Argentina soybeans and cut its forecast for Brazil soybeans. Meanwhile, the USDA announces a sales cancellation by China for 110,000 tons of old crop soft red winter wheat. On Thursday, China canceled a sale for 130,000 tons of the same wheat. Rotting off prices at the Chicago Board of Trade, soybean futures are lower on Friday morning. The May contract is down 8 cents at $11.58 per bushel. May soy oil drops almost a full cent at 45.38 cents per pound. May soy meal dips $1.70 at $332.70 per short ton. Corn is slightly lower, with its May contract giving up a nickel at $4.33 per bushel. Oats are higher, with its May contract tacking on 2 cents at $3.61. The U.S. wheat complex is higher as well, as Chicago May adds 4 cents at $5.32.5. Kansas City May bumps up 2.5 cents at $5.77. And Minneapolis May climbs 3 cents at $6.58. A reminder that daylight savings time begins across most of North America on Sunday at 2 a.m. That's a look at the ICE futures and the Chicago markets for Friday morning, March 8th. For MarketsFarm.com in Winnipeg, I'm Glenn Halleck.
When you live where we do, a snowblower is a must. And Butler Farm Equipment has a great lineup to check out, including MK Martin 3-point snowblowers and blades, Farm King skid steer hydraulic snowblowers, 3-point snowblowers and blades, plus HLA attachments including snow buckets, snow pushes, snow wings, salt and sand spreaders, and blades. Butler Farm Equipment, decades of delivering great service in the Peace Country. To learn more, see them on Facebook or at butlerfarmequipment.ca.
The opinions expressed on this show do not represent those of the station. If you've missed any of the shows, you can follow the podcast at Energeticcity.ca. Welcome to This Week in the Peace, a show dedicated to the people, events, and news of BC's Peace region. Here's your hosts, Dub Craig and Jordan Prentice.
Welcome to This Week in the Peace, our revamped weekly talk show all about current events from Fort St. John and beyond. I'm Jordan Prentice.
And I'm Dub Craig. Later, I'll be speaking with Stan Troyer of Stan's Custom Meat Cutting to talk all about chronic wasting disease, also known as the zombie deer disease, and how you can help in the surveillance and testing process.
But first, today is International Women's Day, and in honor of this day meant to inspire, empower, and recognize women, I am now joined by Samantha Warren, owner of Bold Promotions, president of the Rotary Club of Fort St. John, and board chair for the Spark Women's Leadership Conference. Samantha, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me today.
Of course. So as a woman in a leadership role, tell me, what does International Women's Day mean to you?
I think the biggest thing for me is it's celebrating the women around us and empowering them, the women that are in our lives and in the world. Most of us out there don't do what we do to be recognized, right? So to have a day where we can celebrate all that we do for everybody out there is incredible.
Of course. 100 Women Who Care kicks off on March 12th. That's a local initiative here in Fort St. John, and you were telling me that it's important to you. Can you tell me kind of what it's all about?
I've been to a couple of them, and it's one of those events that there was a couple women in town that sat down and wanted to make a lasting impression in Fort St. John, and they had this idea. They invited 100 women, and they've been able to give I would say over $100,000 within the community, and their goal was to, it's 100 women, $100 each to have a $10,000 check. And the last event I went to, I think it was over 15,000 or more in one night of just a bunch of women getting together and wanting to make a difference. And it's truly incredible. So if you are able to attend, I would.
And sorry, where is it?
So it's at the Lido on March 12th. I think it starts at 7 p.m.
And do people need to buy tickets, or can they just go?
So you don't actually have to be there, but you can register online to give your $100, and yeah.
Okay, perfect. Well, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So tell me about the Spark Women's Leadership Conference. I know that it's celebrated, I believe it's 10th anniversary.
10th anniversary was last year.
Yes.
And it was definitely a hard year for us with the fires and stuff, because we, our conference has always been in May, and then we had to postpone in September. But it was so incredible to bring everyone back in that room, because we had 2 years just being online. But you can't replicate that with the amount of love and support that we have in that room when you have 300 women come together. So this year I am super excited. We have now moved the conference to September again, just in case of fires. So it is September 25th and 26th, but it's about bringing like-minded women all together in a room that want to build your capacity, learn from incredible speakers, network, and just kind of, as I always say, find your waddle. You find those people that are like you, that may have had the same struggles, or and so it's just nice to sit down and have that discussion with people that you may not normally see on the streets.
Okay. And that's in September.
It is, yeah.
Okay. And when does registration open for this year's conference?
Well, we are still picking that date, so I can't tell you exactly, but I can tell you that it will be coming out before we go on summer break.
Okay.
Or the kids go.
Okay.
I wish I could go on summer break, but the kids go on summer break.
Stay tuned for that.
Stay tuned, yes.
Okay, so you are the owner of Bold Promotions and have recently partnered with Moose FM and Energeticcity.ca to launch the Bold Women Contest. The winning nominee will receive up to $100 in Bold swag and will be featured in an article by Energeticcity.ca. First of all, I'd just like to say congratulations on this amazing initiative. We have received a remarkable number of nominations so far. How does it feel to see such a positive response?
It warms my heart. I know when Whitney came on and started doing my social media, I've always wanted to do something like this to celebrate the women. And, we have the co-op champion, and then, you guys also do one for sports, I think, Athlete of the Month.
Yes.
And I'm like, I really want to celebrate women because we have some powerhouses within Fort St. John. And like I said previously, there's a lot of us that do what we do and we don't want to get recognized. And we do it because we love it and it fills our cup. And it would just be nice to recognize those people and say thank you for what you do. And thank you for everything you do for our community. And yeah.
Just reading some of the nominations and what people are saying about the people they're nominating is just really, really beautiful. Kind of brought a tear to my eye a couple times. So how would you define a bold woman?
For me, I would say the biggest thing that makes you a bold woman is knowing your truth and knowing who you are. I think that's one of my biggest things that I've done in the past couple years is really knowing what my worth is. I've been in this industry for 18 years. I've been a solo entrepreneur by myself for the last 7. I have an incredible team of women. And it's a struggle being an entrepreneur. But knowing what I bring to the table has given me so much confidence in the way that I conduct my business, the way that I chair events that I'm a part of. And another thing is, don't ever be scared to ask those questions. I've been told no so many times. I've been told that even when I started Bold, that I could never do it by myself. And here I am today. And I love what I do every single day. And so it's knowing what I'm worth, surrounding myself with people that love me and support me. That's one of my biggest ones.
Well, I think that's amazing, Sam. Thank you. And what do you hope the lasting impact of the Bold Women Contest will be for the women in the Peace region?
There's so many things
Yeah.
with that one. I just want everyone so that you look for those things a little bit more, right? That it's not just going to be a year contest, that, when you see someone being bold or stepping out of their comfort zone, that you thank them for that. I think that's one thing that, we do forget and sometimes we take for granted, is just the things that we do on a daily basis. But some of those things make lasting impacts, and I think if we can, you're writing these letters now and, we get to hear them and everyone's going to be like, wow, now I actually know a person that, it just opens your eyes a little bit more. And I think just more celebrating each other, because there's a lot of stuff going on in the world, right? And sometimes it's those little things that will literally change somebody's life.
Thank you. So last question for you here, Sam. Do you have any words of wisdom or advice for aspiring businesswomen here in the Peace region?
My biggest one would be find the people that support you and ask those questions, like I said before. My biggest part was getting mentors with my journey, and I have multiple mentors. I have one that's been with me from the beginning, but because I was, don't be scared to ask those business questions. And, when you go out for coffee, I sit with multiple people that are nowhere near what I do for business, right? They're in the oil and gas field, or, they work for the city, but just be able to sit there and, pick their brain about things that you're dealing with. And you can never stop learning. I think the one big thing I did for myself is I've always loved to do leadership courses and stuff like that, but I didn't have the capacity when I first started my business. I tried, but you go and do something for a week and you're all inspired, and then you come back home and try and implement everything and nothing works out. But this year I signed up for strategic coaching, which is an incredible program that I'm excited for. I had a mentor that actually suggested me to apply for it. And it's just, investing in yourself. And knowing that it's worth it, and to take the time to do all that stuff, right? And then having your tribe with you, because those are going to be the biggest supporters, because there are going to be days where you wake up and you're like, why am I doing this? Mm-hmm. Right? And then they're going to be the ones saying, because of this. And I would say that.
Okay. I think that's amazing. Thank you so much for joining me today, Samantha.
Thank you.
We've been speaking with Samantha Warren, owner of Bold Promotions and board chair of the Spark Leadership Women's Conference. Stick around for Stan Troyer on the zombie deer disease in just a moment on This Week in the Peace.
Do you have some good news you'd like to share with the community? We here at Moose FM want to share your positivity every weekday. Whether you're fundraising for the SPCA or saw someone doing a good deed in the community, we want to hear from you. Email us at reception@moosefm.ca and we'll share your good news right after the 7:30 a.m. news and on our Facebook pages. Good News is brought to you by Frontier Law.
A great Canadian Oil Change is back in Fort St. John with a brand new state-of-the-art facility. They offer oil changes in 15 minutes, tire rotations, and all regular maintenance needed for your vehicle, all of which can be done without having to leave your car and with no appointment. Whether it's a simple swap like changing a tail light or something a little more in-depth like changing your fuel filter, their expert technicians know how to keep your car on the road. The Great Canadian Oil Change, now open on the corner of Alaska Road and 101st Street. Convenient, trusted, expert care.
What delicious dishes is Chef cooking up at the historic Red Barn Pub and Grill in Charlie Lake this weekend? Follow along on social media to find out. Every weekend, Chef presents signature dishes, and you could be dining on a tasty chicken dish, a hearty soup, savory seafood, tender prime rib, or a heavenly pasta. To stay up to date on all of Chef's creations, follow the pub and local market in Charlie Lake on Facebook or on Instagram at the Pub Charlie Lake, a community hub, not just a pub.
Learn English and have fun. The Fort St. John Literacy Society is hosting free online classes. The language instruction for newcomers to Canada classes are free for permanent residents, refugees, temporary foreign workers, Canadian citizens, and some provincial nominees. These classes are available in person or online. To learn more or to enroll, call 250-785-2110 or visit fsjliteracy.ca.
At Fort St. John Co-op, they understand the importance of high-quality fuel and lubricants for your vehicles and machinery. That's why they offer a wide range of premium products designed to meet your needs. Fort St. John Co-op's premium lubricants provide superior protection against wear and tear, extending the lifespan of your equipment. Fort St. John Co-op even keeps our environment in mind with a waste oil collection facility at all Cardlock locations. Fort St. John Co-op, you're at home here.
You can watch this show live on Facebook, catch the replays at Energeticcity.ca, or be part of the show by texting your thoughts to the Fort City Chrysler line at 250-787-2222.
Welcome back to the show. I'm Dub Craig. Now we're here to talk about chronic wasting disease. It's affecting cervids like deer. There was a case discovered in the Kootenays recently, and there's been a program going on in the Northeast BC to surveil for it that the BC government is hosting. And there is an upcoming information session coming up on Sunday that we're going to talk about. So we're going to talk today with somebody who's very heavily involved in this situation here in Northeast BC. I'm very glad to have Stan Troyer from Stan's Custom Meat Cutting joining me today. Stan, welcome to This Week in the Piece.
Thanks, Dub.
So why don't we talk first about what CWD is? I mean, I use the sort of, shall we say, the dramatic name for it, zombie deer disease. For sure. What is it, and what sort of happens to the animals affected by it?
Absolutely. So chronic wasting disease it's a prion-based disease that infects cervids. So as you mentioned, deer, it also infects elk and moose. Mm-hmm. Not as much, it seems, just by studying other areas that have been dealing with chronic wasting disease for a number of time now, as well as caribou or reindeer. And so a prion is essentially a malformed or a folded protein molecule. Oh, okay. And so an infected animal, once it's infected by this prion, their body can't absorb and use the protein molecules like it normally would. Mm-hmm. And once it's infected, that prion then infects other protein molecules within that animal. And so over time they just accumulate because the body has no way of absorbing or getting rid of these protein molecules. Mm-hmm. And so they eventually begin to accumulate specifically in the brain tissues and spinal tissues of the infected animal. And so what makes it kind of unique is that it's very difficult to detect. Mm-hmm. An infected animal can be asymptomatic for up to or over a year before you start seeing any visual symptoms that this animal is actually sick. Once it reaches that stage, you'll start seeing some of the signs where we get the name zombie deer from. Drooling, they'll be kind of disorientated. Mm-hmm. They'll become very skinny. And so I guess what makes it such a serious disease is it is 100% fatal. So when an animal becomes infected, it will die. Yeah. There is no way to treat it. So similar diseases that we're aware of in the cattle industry would be BSE, mm-hmm. as well as a prion-based disease. At the
mad cow,
mad cow disease. BSE. Yeah, that's correct. As well as scabies in goats and sheep. Or Creutzfeldt-Jacobson syndrome in humans. Mm-hmm. It's a very, very similar, that type of prion disease. And so it's a very serious disease, being that it's infecting wild animals and there is no way to treat it. It's incredibly, incredibly important that we pay attention to it and do everything that we can to then manage it. As you mentioned, there was actually 2 cases confirmed just south of Cranbrook this year, one in a hunter-harvest mule deer and one in a roadkill white-tailed doe. Both animals were in seemingly good health by looking at them. Yeah. And then right at the end of January, we got the positive results back on those 2 animals. And so now we're kind of in the planning phase of what is the next step.
Yeah, what the government response will be to it.
Exactly.
Is it bad for if you harvest a deer and then eat it that has chronic wasting disease? Can it affect humans in any way?
So again, this is kind of one of those touchy areas. There's no confirmed correlation, but it is advised by the government, by the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, the World Health Organization, to not consume an animal that is infected by CWD. And so we do strongly encourage that if your animal did test positive, which up till now we haven't had a positive case in the North Peace or in the Peace region as a whole. But should that happen, we would advise that you reach out to the appropriate individuals to then get rid of that and discard that meat and get it disposed properly.
And we've never had a case ever, is what you're saying, as far as
correct.
we know.
As far as we know. And again, Dub, this is where I guess my push comes and why we're trying to get these programs and these information sessions out there is because our sample numbers are way low. For the past number of years, right at the start of the program in the Peace region, we had fairly good turnouts. The past number of years, we've been under 100 samples with a goal of 300. So we're not even a third of where we should be for our sample numbers. So we're strongly encouraging hunters, like, hey, bring it out. You know, as you mentioned, like I run the meat shop. That's where most people would know me from. We'll do the sampling right there during business hours. So you bring in a fresh harvested head, you know, I can have you on the road in 5 minutes.
Really?
So it's very, very quick.
Okay.
It's very, very simple. If you have what we classify, or if you classify it as a trophy animal, right? Something that you want to get mounted, even with the cape on, still attached to the head and the skull, you can bring that in and I can remove those samples without affecting your mounting quality at all. It's a very, very quick, simple process. So strongly encourage the hunting community. Hunters are our biggest asset in managing it, you know, not only in detecting it, but then after, should it show up, you know, as they're down in the Kootenays now, the hunters should be the forefront of the management process as well.
Okay. Why 300? Is that just like a number the government says, or are you aiming for a percentage of the population?
So the government, and Kate Nelson can address this a little bit better. She has the more fine details, but the government essentially per region said, this is a rough number that we need to see in order to have fair certainty that there isn't a positive case in this region. And so for each region throughout the province, that number, that target sample number varies. But for the North Peace, it has been set at 300, basically right from the get-go.
I see. Okay. I suppose my next question is, without knowing what the government's response is going to be, because I assume we're going to find out more as the days go on. Do you know what it could be? Like what they would do to manage a situation should they find chronic wasting disease in the Northeast? Or even in the case of the Kootenays that they did find it, do you have an idea of what they can do about it to mitigate it spreading further in the population?
For sure. So I'm not privy to share all the details on it, obviously, as being part of the team. But a few examples, I mean, if people are interested and want to look into some of the management practices that have been put into effect, it's been in Alberta for some time. And there was quite a bit of pushback on some of the practices that they used there. And a lot of them are sensitive. So, you know, some of I guess the biggest one would be mass culling or sharpshooting has been the biggest area of concern. It hasn't been shown to be effective 100%. And the reason being, there's no way to extirpate the disease.
Yeah.
Especially once it gets in the environment. So these infected animals shed those prions through their saliva, their mucus, urine, fecal matter. And so once it's in the environment, other animals can pick it up either through physical contact, animal to animal,
Yep.
or animal to environment to animal. And so simply wiping out an entire population, unless, we're dealing with literally one isolated case, is very ineffective from what we've seen in other areas.
Because it's essentially in the ecosystem and the cycle of everything.
That's right.
It reaches a point where it's just like, this whole area is infected by it, even if there aren't cervids there.
Exactly.
It's still in the area.
Yeah. So, so then the goal is to manage, how do we manage that spread? So that's the bigger focus, is not so much exterminating, because I personally don't believe that's possible. Mm-hmm. Obviously, I'm not the most well-versed individual in the province on it.
Sure.
But the bigger focus is going to be managing the spread of that, keeping that population or the prevalence number as low as we can to inhibit the spread. Mm-hmm. There have been already some transportation restrictions that have been put in place. It's mandatory testing down in the Kootenay region there in Region 4, as well as there's a lot of there's new restrictions on carcass disposal as well. And so some of these other responses I think are very logical to see, and I think are good moves in an effort to manage the spread. And something that hunters and trappers and conservationists in general need to be aware of, even the general public.
Yeah.
You find an animal, whether it's a roadkill or whatever, as illegal as it is to remove a head from a roadkill animal, we both know what happens. But the individual may not realize just the potential impact that they're having by not only breaking the law by removing that head, but then transporting that, right? You could potentially be spreading an infectious disease. So,
Wow, this is pretty heavy stuff and important stuff then. Okay, so we've got a minute left, Stan. I want to get through two quick questions. First of all, you mentioned it already, bringing the heads by to you during business hours, 5 minutes in and out. Yeah. People can just walk in. They don't need appointments or anything.
That's right. Yeah. So we're open Monday to Friday, 8 to 5, unless otherwise specified. As well as we also have some drop-off freezers.
Okay.
So the North Peace Rod and Gun Club, they have had a freezer for a number of years. I believe this year they only got 1 or 2 heads in there. Mm-hmm. And so, that would be for cow elk, white-tailed does, where typically the hunter's not keeping the head anyways.
Yeah.
Rather than leave it in the brush, bring it in, do your part, drop it off at one of these locations. We're going to be setting one up down at the RCMP detachment in Hudson Hope.
Okay.
That'll be going on here. Hopefully they'll have a freezer by this coming week. So we'll have one down there. Coeur Lane Sporting Goods in Dawson Creek has had one for a number of years. And then we'll be trying to get a couple more out in preparation for the fall again, just to give people more opportunity, make it easily accessible. For trophy animals, if you're just skull capping, which is simply removing the antlers from the skull, you can drop the rest of the skull into the freezers as well for sampling. So
okay. Mm-hmm. And then finally, this information session happening at the North Peace Rod and Gun Club this Sunday at 6:45 or 6:30, I believe.
Yeah, so we're gonna start at 7. We'll open the doors at 6:45. We'll have our head biologist Kate Nelson is going to be up providing the information, so she'll kind of give us an overview of what CWD is for those that don't know, and then give us a provincial status update. So it's going to be a great evening. I would highly encourage people, if you have the chance, come on out. We'd love to see you there. We'll have drinks and refreshments and some snacks. We'll have a door prize, and then we'll also be doing our CWD participation draw there live that evening as well. So
okay, and you could just walk in, right? You don't have to get tickets or anything.
That's correct. Yeah. I'd love to see us reach capacity limits. We haven't yet, but But as it's becoming more and more critical in the province, we really need to start seeing people show up and get involved.
All right.
So,
well, if you want more info, I know you've posted it on Stan's Custom Meats Cutting Facebook page. I believe it's probably on the North Peace Rod and Gun Club Facebook page. Or again, just show up 6:45 at the North Peace Rod and Gun Club for more information on chronic wasting disease. Stan, thank you so much for taking a few minutes to chat with us about this today.
You bet. Appreciate it.
All right, that's Stan Troyer with Stan's Custom Meat Cutting, talking about CWD and the surveillance program going on here in BC. We'll be right back to wrap things up on This Week in the Piece in just a moment.
Think you know your country music? Tune in at 2:50 every weekday afternoon to play Reverse That Song. We'll be giving away $50 every week to the Great Canadian Oil Change. And all you have to do is tell us what song is reversed by calling the Fort City Chrysler line, 250-787-2222. Reverse That Song on 100.1 Moose FM. Brought to you by the Great Canadian Oil Change.
Raised in the ancestral lands of the Kluane First Nation in Canada's Yukon Territory, Diet hails from a family steeped in tradition and enriched by adventurous hippie attitudes, inheriting a diverse cultural heritage from her southern Tachani, Tlingit, Japanese, and Scottish roots. Diet has forged a unique musical presence. Diet and the Love Soldiers blend alternative country, folk, and traditional music. Get ready for a captivating performance by Diet and the Love Soldiers at the North Peace Cultural Centre on March 14th at 7:30 p.m. To secure your seats, visit npcc.bc.ca.
Before the Peace is an Energeticcity.ca podcast, now available on all major platforms, that highlights Indigenous voices in Northeast BC. Host Trey Lapushinsky will take you on a journey with an Indigenous lens on the history of the Peace region.
You're going to hear my interview with Stuart Cameron, a former chief of Soto First Nation and the Treaty 8 Tribal Association. We delve into some milestones and just the overall work that he put in as chief in the Northeast, as well as his work in the oil and gas sector.
Thanks to Troyer Ventures for making this show possible. Follow Before the Peace wherever you get your podcasts.
At Peaceful Pages, not only will you find a large selection of Bibles, devotionals, and faith-based books, but they also carry a collection of Christian clothing, home decor, giftware, and jewelry. Peaceful Pages Christian Bookstore, open Tuesday to Saturday at 101 Avenue, Fort St. John.
Moose Country weather.
Today, you can expect a high of 6 degrees with some flurries throughout the morning. Later tonight, a low of -5. And tomorrow morning, looks like the sun's going to come out, but some rain comes with it with a high of 5 degrees.
You're listening to the all-new This Week in the Peace with hosts Dub Craig and Jordan Prentice. Be a part of the show by texting your thoughts to the Fort City Chrysler line at 250-787-2222.
Thanks to our guests Samantha Warren and Stan Troyer for joining us today on This Week in the Peace.
You can listen to this show again by checking out the podcast at energeticcity.ca/podcasts. We'll also store this in future episodes and some of the old ones there as well as we make them. Also check out our other locally produced podcasts while you're there, Before the Peace and Secrets of the North.
That's our show for this week. I'm Jordan Prentice.
I'm Dub Craig. Be well.
Join us again next Friday morning at 10 for another edition of This Week in the Peace, your weekly talk show dedicated to the people, events, and news of BC's Peace region. Or you can listen to this podcast again at energeticcity.ca.